murder of 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey in 1996, 16 years ago, sparked a media frenzy that put her parents, Patsy and John Ramsey, under the microscope. From the very start, they were the prime suspects in her murder, and they were still insisting that they were innocent when I interviewed them. Mrs. Ramsey, did you kill your daughter?
No, I did not kill my daughter.
Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey, did either of you have anything to do with the death of your daughter?
No.
No.
Okay, so we have here apparently John Ramsey is on The View back in 2012. Something that I guess I missed, or I haven't seen it yet. Obviously, I'm still going through stuff. So here we go. This is posted by the Ramsey case. Once again, Ramsey case, about 6, almost 7K subs. Has a lot of good archival videos. So if you just want to watch the interview in its entirety, and some of these interviews in their entirety without commentary or anything, I think this channel is the place to go. So Ramsey case, and here we go.
The murder of 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey in 1996, 16 years ago, sparked a media frenzy that put her parents, Patsy and John Ramsey, under the microscope. From the very start, they were the prime suspects in her murder, and they were still insisting that they were innocent when I interviewed them in March of 2000. Take a look. Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey, did either of you have anything to do with the death of your daughter?
No.
No.
Mr. Ramsey, did you kill JonBenet?
No, I did not.
Mrs. Ramsey, did you kill your daughter?
No, I did not kill my daughter.
It was such a tragedy all around, and sadly, John Ramsey suffered yet another tragedy in 2006 when he lost his wife, Patsy, to cancer. He has been completely exonerated in JonBenet's murder, and he received an apology from the authorities. But good heavens, what he's gone through. And now he shares his thoughts in this inspiring, and also it's like a great mystery story, except it's true. It's called The Other Side of Suffering. Please welcome to The View, John Ramsey. John, you and I have done many interviews together.
Yes.
And I always felt that you and Patsy were...
Round 2, huh? Obviously, it's 2012. So he's on his book tour is what this is. Going around it, you know, I think we saw him on in 2012. He was on Robin Roberts' show, which we reviewed. He was doing the book tour there. And I think he did Anderson Cooper in 2012. But I don't know if he presented his book there. But anyways, so obviously he's on his book tour. The interview that they did that I'm remembering is a 2020 interview, which was in 2000. So
we're innocent.
Yeah, I know you said that. Thank you.
It took 12 years for you, and now he shares his thoughts in this inspiring, and also it's like a great mystery story, except it's true. It's called The Other Side of Suffering. Please.
And some of you have also mentioned, it's like when John and Patsy go on these interviews, and John, they go on these interviews, it's like people don't know what to say. They just, kowtow to everything that, John says. And I think, some of it is because they want to, get John back on the show. I mean, we have to bring you back on the show. We have to play nice. And it's not that difficult. Their job, in their mind, their job is, well, there is this innocent little girl who has lost her life, and we do want to find her, but we're not going to get any answers, picking at really the only one that's left that's speaking, who's talking to us, who really knows what happened in the house that night. So, and really not trying to push the envelope.
Welcome to The View, John Ramsey. John, you and I have done many interviews together.
Yes.
And I always felt that you and Patsy were innocent.
Yeah, I know you
but
said that. Thank you.
It took 12 years for you to be cleared, and you even got an apology finally from the authorities. But right from the start, you discovered her Christmas Day, and from the beginning, even though there was no DNA and evidence, you two, for years and years, were considered the chief suspects. Why?
Well, and I think police always look at the caregiver first in the death of a child.
Yes.
And that, even though it shocked us to think that was possible, that we'd be considered, we accepted that, but assumed that they would then quickly move on, which of course they did not.
For years and years.
Why would they? Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for telling us your unreal expectations. Who told you? Now you're showing your ignorance. Who told you a time frame in which the cops were going to move on? Who set that expectation? Who said that? Nobody that I know of came up to you the day of and said, you know what? This is just a formality. We're going to just take a quick look at you guys and see if it's possible that you did it, and we're going to quickly move on. Who told you that? Who set that expectation for you? Because none of the police reports I see, none of them even remotely came close to telling you, hey, look, we're going to probably move on pretty quickly from you guys because we don't think it was you. Now, they gave you the benefit of the doubt to start off with, but nobody told you that they were going to move on quickly. That's the first thing. The second thing is that this shows your ignorance in that you don't know how police investigations work. They have 1,000 other things to do before they clear you. What the heck would they do in time to get you cleared? Like what would they do to speed up this process? I'm confused. Why would you set, you're a grown man. Why would you set that expectation? Why? You're a grown man. Why would you even think that? I'm confused. That's like, that is a very immature way of thinking. Let me put it that way. There's a very immature way of thinking because nobody set that expectation. Nobody told you that. Nobody pulled you aside. You just thought that this is what you're telling us. Based on what you're telling us, you thought that for yourself. And then therefore, this is the direction that we're going. Okay.
Years.
For years, yeah.
And they never have found the person who did it.
No.
Why didn't they move on?
I think they placed their bet early, the first day, and were unwilling to change the bet.
They haven't done any part of the investigation to clear you, John. I love this and I hate this at the same time because now it's getting glaringly ignorant. John is literally just on TV talking. I think they placed their bet day one and, thought it was us. But John, they didn't move on from there because they didn't have any evidence to move you guys out of the way of the investigation. They were able to move other people out and clear other people, but not you guys. Why do you think that is? So I don't even want to say that the narrative is old and tired, but the narrative is telling us that there's a bunch of rhetoric going on here that has nothing to do with anything. It's not related. If you really stop him and check him on stuff and start to really hard press him on stuff, he's going to start fumbling. As we saw in the Ashley Flowers interview, when she said, no, but Dr. Phil asked Burke about going back downstairs and Burke said he went back downstairs. And then John was like, oh, he didn't. Maybe Burke didn't understand the question. When you start to press John a little bit more, you're going to start to get, because John only has this thing about people, depending on where you are as an individual. typically levels to where a person is kind of shallow in their knowledge about something, depending on what subject, and then their, varying levels of depth. Typically, when you say something, and not just to throw something out there just to, catch somebody off guard, but typically there are certain things that somebody says, or that you might say in their response to you that you might know, oh, you probably not really thinking too critically about this, or you probably just don't know too much about it. So that guides me in my conversation, because I'm not going to overwhelm you with a bunch of stuff you don't even know. That's where John is. John is on the very shallow spectrum of what's going on in this investigation. Not in terms of knowing, but in terms of wanting to talk about it, if that makes sense. I know what's going on in this investigation, but in terms of having thought critically or deeply about the story around why this happened to my daughter, he's not thought critically about that part at all. It's 2012. Your daughter died in 96. Say 97. And since then, you have not thought critically about why your daughter died. You can always tell us theories. You can tell us who said what, but you can never sit down and tell us for certain, well, I've analyzed this thing 3 ways a Sunday, and this is what I'm thinking. We are working with these many people, and this is what we found. We think we're getting closer. John tends to externalize, which is crazy because that's not John. John is not an externalized or external locus of control kind of individual. When we talk about external locus of control, if you haven't heard of it, external locus of control is just everything is outside of me. I can't handle, or I don't have control of anything, right? If you're an individual who says that, man, I have an external locus of control, that means that, the sky is this, it's raining today. So that's going to stop me from, going to work. And if I can't go to work, I can't make money. If I can't make money, then I can't buy groceries, and all these things that happen that I had no control over, whereas somebody with an internal locus of control might say, you know what, it's raining outside, but I'm not going to call off. I'm still going to work. Why? Because I need that money. I need that money because I know I'm going to have to buy groceries, and I know I'm going to have to buy groceries because my baby's going to be hungry. I'm going to be hungry. So I have to cook, even though I don't feel like it. I'm going to go out there and do it. So it's the same scenario, but very two different perspectives. John should be an internal locus of, this is why I bring that up. John should be an internal locus of control kind of person, which he has continued to show us in terms of business. He took over his business and he took it from, 16 million or something like that to 160 to 500 to $1 billion in sales. Internal locus of control. Give me the reins and I'll fix it. Got it into the hands of Lockheed Martin. Give me the reins and I'll fix it. Now let's carry this thing on home and get it over to GE. Let's carry this thing on out. John's path should have been sell it on to GE, and then I'll go out, make some more money, take that money, start another business, and move on and go from there and be a serial entrepreneur and be a serial investor, sit on some boards, advise some people, be a pillar in the community, local pillar in the local community, run for office and be elected, and then, affect change on that side of things. And my family's happy, and my daughter's growing up, and she's, great. She's going to Harvard or Columbia, and, my son, he's going to University of Michigan, and all of that. That should have been the path. But when it comes to the investigation, John has no internal locus of control. It's always what someone else said. It's always what somebody else did. Everything is externalized. And that I'm starting to, all right.
And didn't want to be proven wrong. And I had a very seasoned chief of police tell me that there's no.
There it is.
And I had a very seasoned chief of police tell me that there's nothing more dangerous in this country than a police department that makes up its mind.
Yeah. They didn't want to, because they couldn't find the suspect, maybe they didn't want to.
Well, and I think that people want a solution to that. It was a horrible crime, and a child was murdered, and people just want an answer.
It wasn't just you and Patsy. Your son Burke, who was 9 at the time, was at home that night when JonBenet was found. And he answered investigators' questions again and again and again. But I hear even as recently, I'm looking at October 2010, investigators were still speaking to him. Do they still think that he may have been involved? Because he was also a suspect, that little boy.
Well, ironically, yes. Unbelievably, yes. But the 2010 incident was a little bizarre in that the police came to his dorm room during finals week, his senior year, knocked on his door, gave him a card and said, if you ever want to talk to us, here's our card, and they left. During finals week.
Do they still think that he may have been involved? Because he was also a suspect, that little boy.
Well, ironically, yes. Unbelievably.
I'm confused by what he was. So Barbara's asking, she's trying to get ready to ask, do they think he's a suspect? And John is talking about the police. And John is saying, no, which is weird. You should be saying yes, yes. That's number one. Number two, he says, ironically, because he comes back, he's about to disagree with Barbara in that the police are still thinking that Burke is a suspect, because what it sounds like he was about to say is that, no, they don't think he's a suspect. They're just coming and checking on him and just wanting to extend and all of and just want to extend their services and make sure that, you know, he's open to talk, is what it sounds like he was about to say. But instead of going against Barbara, he decides to go with Barbara. And in going with Barbara, he says, oh, yeah, absolutely. I do agree that the cops are still looking at him. Ironically, he should, and essentially they should have never been looking at him in the first. So when we say ironically, kind of saying, you know, contrarily, and this shouldn't have happened, you know, but it's like, again, the naive response. Why shouldn't have the BPD? Why shouldn't they have taken a look at Burke or you or your wife? And I'm not saying they shouldn't have. I'm just saying they should have moved on quickly. Why? Why do they have to move on quickly? They have a case open. Even still, if they're looking at you years later, even still, why should they move on now? We don't have a reason to move on. Stop telling me to move on, and I'm not done investigating you. Please. Have you guys come up with anyone? You guys paid for the best lawyers in town. Do you have anybody that? Absolutely not. So stop telling the cops what to do if you don't have an answer. Think deeper about this, come up with some answers, and then give them to the BPD. Maybe then they might listen.
Yes, but the 2010 incident was a little bizarre in that the police came to his dorm room during finals week, his senior year, knocked on his door, gave him a card and said, if you ever want to talk to us, here's our card, and they left. And of course it was representatives, they reinterrogated him and so forth. That was not true. But
well, it sounds like they were still suspicious, though.
I don't think so. Not of Burke. They apparently there was a task force a couple years before that recommended that they go talk to Burke again to see, now that he's older, did he remember anything?
People still suspicious of you?
Oh, I'm sure there's an element that is, sure. That's never going to go away.
So it took 12 years to become exonerated, yet in the public eye, as Barbara just alluded to, you know, it took a long time for the public to maybe step away from blame, right? So going back, do you think that at being 6 years old, people would see JonBenet Ramsey and say, okay, well, they put her in this situation. They would assert blame. Do you, looking back, think that there was a connection between her being in pageants to her murder?
Well, I wondered that. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But yet I don't think it was a good idea.
She was in
in
the all
retrospect.
dressed up like the
Right.
little kids in the
Right.
tiara.
Why was that a good idea?
Patsy and JonBenet did it for fun. They just had fun with it. In fact, we
Right.
used to joke that she needed to lose a few of these contests so she understood that you can lose in life sometimes.
Right.
You don't always win. But it was just fun for them. It was a mother-daughter thing. And Patsy, you say, what else can a child... She wanted to give her children outlets to try to see what they're good at.
Do you, when you see something like we talk about this all the time on the show, John, toddlers and tiaras, when you see a show...
Huh. What?
And
Right.
there's so many of those on reality shows right now.
Noticed
and
that, yeah.
What are your thoughts and feelings
Well,
on...
you know, JonBenet and Patsy did that for fun. Patsy had just come out of cancer treatment.
Right.
I think deep down she didn't know how long she had to live and how much time she had to spend with her child. So she tried to pack a lot into a day. And the perspective they took on it was just fun. In fact, we used to joke that JonBenet needs to lose a few of these contests to understand that you do lose in life. You don't always win. But so their perspective is right. But I saw an element of competitiveness that I thought was unhealthy.
And there's a medal because you like the talent competition, and there was...
They're all dressed up like the little kids in the tiara.
Why was that a good idea?
Patsy and JonBenet did it for fun. They just had fun with it. In fact, we used to joke that she needed to lose a few of these contests so she understood that you can lose in life sometimes. You don't always win. But it was just fun for them. It was a mother-daughter thing. And Patsy, you say, what else can a child... She wanted to give her children...
So it's like you're saying the exact same thing, and I mean that. On this circuit, they said, hey, here are the talking points. Don't you dare deviate. Hey, and John, that's for you. Hosts, reporters, interviewers, these are the questions that you will be asking John. Ask him in a roundabout way. Ask him any way that you want. Ask him in any order that you want. Ask him in any kind of version that you want. But don't deviate from this. And John is like, great. So all I have to do is understand kind of what the question is talking about with the lead in. And so, oh, they might be on this question or whatever, talking about this. We're going to talk about these topics. Oh, man, continues to go toward this controlled narrative that John wants to do. He wants to be in control. I'm not coming on if we're going to talk about this. I'm not coming on if we're going to go this direction. And it's because it's starting to become difficult for me to believe that he's truly off the cuff. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to believe that he's truly off the cuff, as he told Ashley Flowers and as he continues to tell other people, I'm absolutely, truly off the cuff. It sounds like the varying versions of the questions he has an answer for. And the answer is probably going to be the same as we just saw.
Outlets to try to see what they're good at.
When you see something like we talk about this all the time on the show, John, toddlers and tiaras, when you see a show like that, what are your initial thoughts and message to parents?
It's kind of shocking to me, frankly. I think when Patsy and JonBenet were doing this 15 years ago, it wasn't as, as intense.
But people criticized you. It was one of the reasons that they were angry, the public, with you. Yeah. Look what you did with your little girl.
Well,
do you think you called attention to her?
Well, that's the risk. I don't think that was the cause of her murder, but yet that was a potential risk. And I tell people, look, if you're in a shopping mall and there's more than 100 people there, there's probably someone there that's looking at your child in a way they shouldn't.
Do you think you may have placed your family in these kind of circumstances that may have called attention to them, that may have related to?
Yeah, I think so, and that I regret that, but I think that's very possible because that's the question you ask: why were we targeted? Why were we singled out?
Did you ever find an answer to that question? Why us?
No, not yet.
We also do not know who you think did it and who the police think. Don't tell us yet. We've got more time and we want to give you more time. So John Ramsey is going to stay with us. We'll be right back.
Next, Barbara has more of her exclusive interview with the late Patsy Ramsey about the murder of daughter JonBenet.
I don't want to hear no expert told me talk. What do you think?
John Ramsey, the father of JonBenet Ramsey, who would have been 21 had she not been brutally murdered. I want to play a clip because we did many interviews together. This is from the year 2000 when I asked Patsy Ramsey about how she found the strength to go on. Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey, again and again in your book, you talk about your faith in God.
If it weren't for our faith, there would be no hope of ever seeing JonBenet again. But we know that we will see her again in heaven.
You think that JonBenet is in a better place?
I would have liked to think that my arms were the best place for JonBenet to be. But she's in a place where I hope to be one day. I know I'll be there.
Well, Patsy Ramsey died in 2006.
That's a good response. That's a genuine response. I like that response. Because as a parent, you know, when somebody asks you that, do you think that your child should be somewhere else? Whether you're religious or not, like, do you think your child should be in a better place? And the parent will probably say, a loving parent will probably say, well, honestly, I want my child here with me. You know, that's what I really want. I know that this is a good opportunity. I know that this is a good thing that we should be happy about. However, you know, I want my kid here with me, you know, so I'm a little bit conflicted. And so to me right there, it came through that Patsy was conflicted and she's showing these conflicts. And this is the thing that I think about Patsy as I go through these interviews is that Patsy is a risk. Patsy is being watched and looked over by her attorneys, and she's been guarded and protected so much because she is a risk in terms of breaking down and just being completely out of it. She talked about in her book, I believe it was, how when her and John went to stay with the Steins, she talked about how Susan would be trying to talk to her sometimes and she just wouldn't have the mental capacity for it. You know, she just, you know, she said, I know Susan's trying to lighten up the mood, but I just don't really have the capacity for this right now. I'm just stuck on my daughter and I'm hurting. I just lay in the bed and cry, you know, sometimes and stuff like that. And then, yes, these are like when we get away from the cameras, these are consistent, in my opinion, consistent, honest responses and reactions to the my brain is moving too fast, to the situation. These are appropriate responses to what's happening. These are appropriate to what's happening. And so it makes me believe in a sense that Patsy could have been a risk, because it could be the case that in her grief, sometimes Patsy would say things that would kind of make you go, huh? In terms of, hey, so babe, we got this plan. This is what we're going to do. I've already worked it out with Hal Haddon. I've already worked it out with your lawyer. I've already worked it out with Lynn Wood. I've already worked it out with Cindy's lawyer. This is what we're going to say. This is what we're going to do. And the problem for Patsy becomes, you're going to try to get me to go deeper into something that I don't want to go into. And give her some time, she'll do it. Give her some time and she'll say it. But just for right now, let me chew on it. Let me think about it, because having to forsake my child. And that when we go back to the press conference and we think about how Patsy was asked, do you think, that was a crazy question, do you think JonBenet would be happy with you right now? Or JonBenet would be sort of happy with your efforts? And Patsy kind of was like, I would, like to think that, I would like to think that she would be happy, and, she's happy that we're, looking for the killer. And she was very, very choppy in her response on that. It's very choppy. And I think it was very choppy because you literally hit me. She can't handle the weight of statements like that very well. You have to really give her, it's going to take a lot of training to help her accept, because every time you say something like that, if I know, maybe I don't, that grief is going to hit me every single time. And I have to take a step back, because it's like you literally punched me in the gut, and I have to, because sometimes I could take a punch to the gut and I can step back and say, oh, that kind of hurt. But sometimes when I take the punch to the gut, I have to take a knee, and I have to really think about whether I want to get back up or not, whether I want to go home and climb into bed and just from right now say no more questions. But I can't say no more questions, because if I do, I'm going to look suspicious. And then if I look suspicious or I look vulnerable, the media is going to come after me. They're going to be knocking on my door the next day, which they tell the story in their book, how the media traced them and tracked them down to Pasta J's, and tracked them down to the Stein's house and whatnot. If I look weak, then the media is going to track me down, and they're going to try to isolate me and get me to break. And this is where they start blaming a lot of stuff on the Boulder Police Department, because they say the Boulder Police Department put out information on them, essentially leaked information on them for the news media to come against them like that, and track them down and put pressure to separate them. And John and Lynn Wood really and Hal Haddon are like, oh no, you don't. You're not going to separate me from my wife. We know what you're doing. No, it's not going to happen. You evil media, foul fiends. You guys are not going to stop us. You guys are not going to separate us. And so John takes it as the police are doing this to get at us. When honestly, it could have just simply been that the media was just interested in the story. It's hot, it's new, it's sort of salacious, it's juicy. We need this story to kind of like, it's not resolved. I'm not wrong. If it was resolved, then sure, we'll let it go. But it's not resolved. There's a lot more meat on this bone. So I'm going to keep on going. So I think that they knew that it doesn't matter. They knew that it wasn't a possibility that Patsy could become very vulnerable and emotional and could get annoyed or agitated and slip up and say something. And that's why there had to be some sort of protection against allowing her to do that. And I think as we just kind of returning to this, as we kind of see some of those responses that we see from Patsy are genuine responses. When we think back to the CNN interview, January 1st of 97, and she started saying, watch your babies, keep your babies close, that she resonated with keep your babies close. Because that's a part where I gotta say it, because I gotta come off genuine, and I gotta build rapport with my audience. And John is like, oh, if you cry, that's gonna be perfect. Or maybe not even John, but the idea is that if you cry, it's going to be perfect. It works. It shows that they're genuine. There's genuineness. Perfect. But for Patsy, it's like, I understand. I went to journalism school. I'm a journalist. I've also been in marketing. I know what it looks to, what it's like to be public facing. I know the game, but I also know that this is not a game. I also know my feelings are in this. So I can't just say something for the sake of saying something for a game, because I might get caught a little bit more than John, because John is he's a stone face. He's stonewalled. He's going through it like it doesn't even affect him. Now, John had some points of weakness where he started to lose it a little bit, but he caught himself, redirected, iterated, and came back and said, how do we not do that again? How do we hold it together? How do we present a strong front? That's what John did. And I don't think Patsy was ever really successful in doing that. So she had those random slip-ups that made people, her lawyers specifically, and John, hover over her.
It wasn't until 2008 that she was officially cleared, so she died, John still being a suspect. Mm-hmm. She never knew that she had been cleared.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
That's a terrible thing right there.
Well, Patsy was a very strong person. She knew who she was. Her friends knew who she was. Yeah. And so even though that element was still there, an overhang, it didn't seem to
John,
be a bother.
It's been a hard journey for you, because before JonBenet was brutally murdered, you lost your daughter Beth in a car accident. Then you lost your daughter JonBenet. Mm-hmm. Then you lost your wife to ovarian cancer. I mean, I don't think anybody could blame you for being angry, for being bitter. Mm-hmm. Were there times when you just considered that this life here was not worth it?
I'd be less than honest if I didn't say yes.
Meaning you thought of suicide?
Well, suicide is an escape from an intense pain, mm-hmm. and that the better alternative for us, which we found, was to sleep. This was recommended to us by our minister. He said, when you get up, deal with the day. When you can't deal with it anymore, go to bed.
What if you can't sleep, though, with the anxiety?
Two Benadryl did a wonder on that.
Right. You also lost your business. I mean, your job.
Benadryl. Medication. How about that melatonin that kind of helped them sleep all night? You probably want to go back to that melatonin is what you want to go back to, because that seems to be the thing that kept you asleep the first night, the night of the all right, anyways. hey, that melatonin, he took that melatonin and didn't hear a peep. That melatonin worked wonders. If y'all need to sleep ever again, return to the melatonin, because that works for you. My God.
Your life
definitely challenged.
Before we went to break, Barbara was asking, who do you think killed JonBenet Ramsey? What is your theory?
Well, I think John Douglas, who was a very noted FBI crime profiler, set up that program for the FBI a number of years ago, took a hard look at this, and he said he believed that it was someone who was angry at me or jealous of me, mm-hmm. and it was primarily directed at me. And that was hard for me to accept and to swallow.
But she was sexually assaulted, the child, yes. So maybe the motivation was
well, there is that theory as well.
In the house, and so it was such a brutal. Yeah.
And what ultimately a challenge to your faith. You say on page 28 of your book, I asked myself, why didn't I pray more? Where have I fallen short in God's eyes? Why didn't He protect JonBenet? Was I being punished? And then
the John Douglas thing is also another talking point.
At the end of the book, you say, God's grace has come to me through trial. I believe the best days of my life are ahead of me. I found them on the other side of suffering, where they were waiting. How do you make that journey? How do you go from thinking, I am being punished, the love of my life, my little girl, was just ripped from me, blaming God, essentially, to feeling ultimately loved by Him?
Well, the first question I think anybody asks when they're thrown a curveball in life is, why did this happen to me? Mm-hmm. And I certainly asked that question in anger. But a number of years ago, a friend asked me, he said, John, do you believe the best days of your life are in front of you? And I said, well, no, that's What a silly question. That's not possible. And I wasn't being bitter or
John, I'm
sarcastic.
going to stop because we only have 30 seconds, and you're in a good place in your life, in part because you remarried just 8 months ago to this lovely lady, Jan, sitting in our front row. Well, I think that makes people feel very good.
Be quiet.
Would it ultimately a challenge?
The level of skepticism from left to right. The least amount of skepticism. Completely believes, as she stated. Joy is, can't remember this young lady's name. Sherry, Joy. Half and half. Not naive, if I were to guess. Not naive, still has some questions, but not willing to think about it too much. Highly skeptical. Highly skeptical. I would dang near put her in highly skeptical as well, based off what I'm seeing. Based off what I'm seeing and the tone in which she asks the questions is why I'm saying that. Because when she asks, Barbara, when Barbara talks about it, it's more of I'm telling you, I'm helping you, right? I'm helping you out. I'm telling these people, this is a good guy. And Joy is kind of, just kind of sitting back having a conversation. Yeah. So what do you think about this? I can't remember her name, but essentially when she asks the question, it's almost like she's asking like, but don't you think, or what do you think about this? What do you think? Like she's trying to understand. She's like, I don't want to let my biases get in the way. So I'm just going to ask and see how I feel. And she's hoping that she can get there. Sherry has been the quietest. If my recollection throughout this video is correct, she has been the quietest and she has just watched. She's watching her read her notes and she's just kind of watched and listened. She's asked like one question, but she really doesn't know how to feel, it seems like. There's probably a lot of factors just kind of going in at the same time that's affecting her mood and her energy and her responses and how she's interacting with John and stuff like that. Because, Barbara is kind of leaning forward with her hands in her lap. Sherry has her hands in her lap. She has her hands in her lap. Joy has her hands on the table and she's kind of peering over, looking interested. And so she's like, what do we have here? Ready to engage in the conversation. But she has her shoulders kind of hunched over and her hands in her lap. And a lot of the weight, there's a lot of stress on the back in this position. It's almost like a disappointed seating posture or position is what it's almost like somebody's at their wit's end, trying to really understand it, but it's so complex that it's hard for me to understand, and I just don't know where to go from here because I really want to figure this thing out, and it's just so sad. And that make sense because I know she's a little bit more emotionally or she's more empathetically driven. From what I've seen, some of the clips that I've seen of her just kind of in passing, everything that she says is typically emotionally or empathetically driven. Sherry, on the other hand, hands in lap, but her head is tilted like this and she's just kind of looking over like that, but she's sitting back, as in not engaged with the conversation. And from what it looks like her eyebrows are kind of elevated, so that when she's looking, she's kind of looking like this. So if you were to ask her a question, be like, Sherry, what do you think? Which could signify that I got something to say, but I don't want to say it here. You know, kind of deal. So, but anyways, I think that's the end of the video.
Place.
Well, thank you.
In this place here and in this that makes people feel very good. Having gone through so much, and we all feel for you, I'm very happy to see you in this place.
Well, thank you.
In this place here and in this
It's
place
nice
in
to
your
be
life.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The book is called The Other Side of Suffering. It is inspirational, and it's also, as I said, a great mystery, and members of our audience are going home with it. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Maybe you saw something I didn't. Put in the comments. Let me know. Like, share, subscribe. As always, appreciate you being here. And again, shout out to everybody tuning in from wherever you're tuning in from, whether it's, you know, domestically in the U.S. where I'm at, or internationally, UK, Canada, things of that nature, or somewhere else that I'm not aware of. Appreciate you tuning in. I think that's it. Until the next video, continue to take care of yourself, continue to rest, take it easy where you can. Until next time, take care.